Hey guys, it's Lauren. So this month I didn't watch YouTube, and in this video I'm going to let you know the process of this month and my thoughts on this challenge. So these are my chapters for this video. Chapter 1 is why I stopped watching YouTube. Chapter 2 is what I learned. Chapter 3, how I want to consume YouTube in the future. Chapter 4, Uncertainties and Reflections. Chapter 5, Limitations and Conclusion. So yeah, let's get started. So chapter 1, why I stopped watching YouTube. So for context, for historical context, I'm currently a first year veterinary student, and it's very time consuming, and I basically only have a few hours of free time per day on a school day, and I've just been using YouTube as a default relaxation activity to fill that time. And because of this, I've been feeling like I'm not really doing anything. Like, I'm doing vet school obviously, but other than that, I just have been feeling unproductive and like I'm wasting my time. Okay, so chapter 2 is what I learned from this challenge. And the first thing that I learned is that the reason why I was consuming YouTube as a default relaxation activity in my free time was actually because I wired my brain to do that automatically, and that I can rewire it to do a different activity for relaxation. And I did this through associated learning, which is defined as an unconscious process where an automatic conditioned response becomes associated with a specific stimulus. And the most famous example is Pavlov's dog, which is an experiment where they took a dog and then rung a bell, and then after each time that they rung a bell, they gave this dog food. So then after a while, this dog began to associate the ringing of the bell with being handed food, and so he started salivating at the sound of the bell, which is normally a neutral stimulus, but because it was constantly associated with the food, he associated this bell with the food. And similarly, I feel like I conditioned myself classically through this method. So the translation of this, it's not perfect, but basically this is me, and this is me after vet school needing an activity to relax with. So this is me being like, okay, I want to relax, and this is my relaxation time. Being in this state, I would open YouTube, which is the neutral stimulus, which doesn't mean anything, kind of like the bell. And then after watching it, I kind of associated it with being relaxed because I'm opening YouTube during the time that I want to relax. And it doesn't even matter if I actually did feel relaxed from this or not. It's just because I constantly opened YouTube during my relaxation time that I began to associate opening YouTube with relaxation. So it became a conditional cue for the physiological state of relaxation for me, like Pavlov's dog. It's not perfect, but you get it. So in order to undo whatever this is, you have to put a different activity in place of YouTube. Because when I got home, my automatic reflex was to sit down and open YouTube. But instead of this, you can put in a different activity, and for me, it was going on a walk with family or friends. And also, you have to choose the appropriate activity to substitute YouTube with for the level of your tiredness. For example, when I first started this challenge, I was like, okay, I can just do a different activity instead of YouTube. So what I did when I got home in order to feel relaxed was read. So because I was like, okay, instead of watching YouTube, I'll just read. But this was kind of rough for me because I'm currently reading The Brothers Karamazov, and the chapter I was on that day was The Grand Inquisitor. And this day particularly, it was super hard. Like, it was very difficult material. And then immediately when I got home, I opened The Grand Inquisitor, and if you don't know, this is a chapter where there's a lot of dense philosophical dialogues. So then after reading that, my brain was so fried that day. And the next morning I woke up, I actually had a headache. So what I realized is that you need to choose the right activity. So in order to combat this, I created this kind of, you know, activities list for the level of tiredness you're feeling. So this category is when you're very awake and your brain is clear. And then this category is average tiredness for after school. And then this category is when you're about to pass out, like your brain is fried. And so these are the activities that I decided to put. But I realized that I do need to have like a default activity to do when I get home as an instinctive response, you know, to fill in the void of having lost my automatic method of relaxation. And for this, for me, this was going on a walk with my friend or family. So when I got home and I was like, okay, I need to relax, instead of opening YouTube, I was like, okay, time to go on a walk. And this brings me to my side note, and this is just my thoughts, like this isn't real. I think that the desire to use YouTube for comfort as a way of relaxation is very much likely a symptom of lacking in-person social interaction, which is why I feel like spending time with like friends or family is a good substitute for that. And this is just a quote from the movie Oldboy. The TV is both a clock and calendar. It's your school, your home, your church, your friend, and your lover, but my lover's song is too short. And this just signifies that no matter how much YouTube you have, there is no substitute for in-person social interaction. Even though the TV can act as a band-aid, the song is too short, which means that it can never be a real person. Okay, the second thing that I learned from this experiment is that my academic motivation actually increased. And I feel like this happened because watching YouTube to me is a very high dopamine activity, and schoolwork is the lowest dopamine activity for me. So I created this, what's this called again? A timeline? No. Okay, I'll just call it a spectrum. So here I created a spectrum of activities from lowest dopamine to highest in dopamine. And this isn't scientific or anything, but this is just how much dopamine I think each activity has. I didn't measure it or anything. And I think that on the highest dopamine side is short form content, so anything that's like TikTok or Instagram Reels. And then the lowest end has schoolwork. But then the second to highest dopamine to me is slightly longer form content, which is YouTube. And then like movies, reading a book, creating something. So the reason why I feel like my academic motivation increased from this challenge is because I mean, I don't have this short form content anyways, but the next highest in dopamine is YouTube. So then I canceled this out as well from my life. So then the gap between the highest dopamine activity and the lowest is shorter. So I find it easier to do schoolwork because there's not much of a difference in dopamine from the activity that I would do when relaxing. And this is a quote. It's, YouTube, while a valuable open information resource, is not risk-free. Compulsive use of YouTube can result in a reduced academic motivation. So yeah. And the last thing I learned from this challenge is I really think that I had increased presence and I was more in the moment during this challenge. And here's an example. So on the first like few days of doing this, I went to the grocery store with my mom immediately after school, and I was kind of like antsy a little bit because it was taking forever. Like the car ride there was really long for some reason, and I was like, oh, I want to go home, I want to go home. But then I realized like, okay, if I do go home, what would I do? Like, genuinely, what would I do? It's not like I'm gonna go home and watch YouTube, right? So it's like, okay, me hanging out with my mom right now is probably the highest dopamine activity that I'm gonna do that day. Like, what am I gonna do? Go home and read, right? So it's like, it helped me be more in the present and be like, okay, me spending time with my mom is probably the most fun I'm gonna have today. So then I was like, okay, I need to like be in the moment. So on the car ride, I was just like enjoying it way more, looking outside the window and being like, I'll definitely look back on this memory one day. And that brings us to chapter 3, which is how I want to consume YouTube in the future. I really want to focus on mindful consumption, which entails intentional searching of content that is based on my needs at that moment. For example, if I'm like traveling somewhere, I can look up travel content intentionally and actually gain something from that. And I don't need to continue clicking on everything on an endless loop. And I really want to think before I click. Like, for example, if I'm finished watching a YouTube video and what I intended to gain from that content is fulfilled, then I don't need to constantly click on something else. So it's like, before I click something, now I want to ask myself, okay, why am I clicking on this? Is it just because this title is intriguing and it's like clickbaity kind of? Is it because the thumbnail is crazy? Like, why do I want to click this? If there's no real reason for why you are clicking something, just don't, okay? And you need to have like a natural stopping point. Let's say the content you looked up and watched did not fulfill your needs at the time, then you need to have a natural stopping point where you're like, okay, well, I don't need to continue watching endless videos. And also, I just want to use YouTube more for learning rather than entertainment. This quote says, "Stronger motivation to use YouTube for information and learning is associated with lower compulsive use, while stronger motivation to use YouTube for entertainment is associated with higher compulsive use." And of course, I'll still use YouTube for entertainment occasionally, because there is a handful of YouTubers that I always think are entertaining and funny, and I want me to intentionally watch that content occasionally instead of like just searching around mindlessly on YouTube for entertainment. And this quote says, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested." Which really demonstrates that we need to consume mindfully. That brings us to chapter 4, which is Uncertainties Reflections kind of thing. The first thing that I have uncertainty on is YouTube as a method to consume artwork, because I think there is a lot of content on YouTube that is very meaningful and made very beautifully, and that have the power to transform you and change you. But my problem with that is that you are not really guaranteed to find meaningful content on YouTube, because there's so many videos and so much junk on there, like where everyone is trying to grab your attention, and it's kind of rare to find a video that's super well created that can move you. And my analogy for YouTube is that it's kind of like the Lotus Hotel and Casino in Percy Jackson, which is a hotel where you lose track of time and you feel bliss, but you don't know how much time is passing in the outside world the longer you are in this hotel. And of course, in the hotel, maybe there's things that move you, maybe you meet someone who can transform you, but there's always that risk of staying there and not knowing how much time has passed and how much you're just in a state of euphoria, not knowing that you need to leave eventually after you have found something meaningful. And so I just think that there's a lack of a navigational system in order to find this content that is truly meaningful to us. But I don't really have a solution for that. But also, my question is, isn't it like this for any kind of media you consume? For example, if you're reading something, then you might not really resonate with the book, but you kind of just have to finish reading the book in order to see if it means anything to you. Or a movie, like you can watch endless movies and they don't mean anything to you, but you have to watch them in order to know if they move you. So yeah, isn't YouTube just like any kind of method of art consumption in that sense? But also I just think there's something about YouTube where it's a little bit more chaotic than consuming other kinds of media. But I don't know. And that brings me to my second uncertainty, which is YouTube as a third place. So if you don't know what a third place is, it's defined by these people as a place that enriches social interaction, a sense of community, and belonging outside the home. So instead of your house or your work, it's kind of a place where people gather to meet each other and socialize. Yet third places are closing in the US. Americans may be losing access to key services, goods, and amenities, in addition to community sites that help buffer against loneliness, stress, and isolation. So third places are becoming more obsolete in the current day and age. And so I feel like YouTube has really transformed into a kind of digital third place where people with similar interests and ways of thinking can gather based on niche interests. And I just don't really know if this kind of digital third place is equivalent to just like a random third place. Like, let's say you go to the disco in the 70s and you meet random people, right? Is that third place naturally better than a digital third place where people have niche interests together just because it's in person? For example, let's say I really want to talk about like the book that I'm reading, right? If I go on Reddit and r/Dostoevsky, I would be meeting people who have the same interests and want to talk about the same thing as me. Whereas if I go to like a random third place, like a disco, yes, it's in person, but I would feel kind of less connected to the people there. So it's like, just because it's a in-person third place, does that make it naturally better than a digital third place just because it's in person? Even though in a digital third place, there's people who might connect with me better because we have the same interests and ways of thinking. I don't really know. Like, how do you rank the level of fulfillment you get from a social interaction? But then again, are we just tapping out? Like, because we have this option to connect with people with the same interests as us while never leaving our homes, are we more likely to just not try at all to go in person and find people who are similar to us? Because we're like, oh, that's too much effort because I need to talk to so many people. I can just stay home on Reddit talking to people who want to talk about the same things as me. But honestly, this is a whole other can of worms that I don't want to get into right now, which is the topic of finding connection in this society. Okay, and last chapter is limitations and conclusion. The only limitation I could think of right now is, other than the fact that I'm just a random girl from the internet, is my environment naturally allows for social connection right now because I'm a veterinary student and everyone in my class kind of lives near each other. So all of my friends live nearby, so I can kind of go on walks with them whenever I want. And also in school, I see people every single day for 8 hours straight. So because I have more social interaction in my environment, I feel like it's easier for me to cut out YouTube, which can act as a stand-in social interaction method for a lot of people, depending on their environment. Because when I was in undergrad, I felt so disconnected from people because I was off campus, and just the environment of a college is very different from like a small professional school. So during that time, I was consuming a lot more YouTube because my environment did not really allow for social interaction. But my conclusion is that you can condition yourself to associate relaxing with non-YouTube activities, though it might seem so natural to go home and open YouTube and watch it as a default form of relaxation. That has a lot to do with the way you wired yourself to act, and you can replace it with other activities. And also, the craving for YouTube, I think, is very often due to a general lack of social fulfillment. So I think if there is a constant craving for watching YouTube, then I think that means that you need to find more ways to connect with people in person other than using YouTube as your main source of social fulfillment. And also, I just think for me, the best way to consume YouTube after this month is mindfully, and this challenge definitely helped me kind of reset my brain so that mindful consumption is more doable. I want to have a purpose behind why I'm opening YouTube at a time and why I'm watching a certain video. So yeah, that's the end of this video. Okay, bye.